right. So again, thanks everyone for joining in. Looking out my window, October 1st, and we've got some spooky skies. Very fitting for the season, so that's fun to see. Let's share this PowerPoint here. And we'll kind of jump right into the agenda, and we'll start off with Mark. So feel free to take it over and let us know about some EDA program updates and about the broadband grant.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. Outside of the broadband grant, obviously, just in that discussion with Kevin, we're doing a lot of project development. Ever since the federal government passed the CARES Act, the EDA, specifically in our region, received $225 million to fund projects. So that money has to be spent before September of 2022. So we've been attacking regional projects in Ashtabula, Mahoning, and Trumbull County, trying to get as many through the process as we can. The broadband grant happened to be one of the lucky ones that got funded. We received a $132,500 grant from the EDA. That was matched with funding from all three counties. So we have about $215,000 roughly to pay for a consultant to do a feasibility study. And that's what I'm going to explain to you guys here tonight. Justin, you can move to the next slide. Yeah, so the need for this study was it was basically four reasons. There's a lack of access and coverage in rural portions of the region, low bandwidth, lack of speed, unreliable connectivity. Commissioners in Ashtabula tell us that students regularly have to travel to a McDonald's just to find a hotspot. They can't get high-speed internet that is sufficient enough to do their schoolwork presentations at their homes, which is it's troubling situation. And the same thing goes for portions of rural Trumbull County and also into Mahoning County. As we move to the second bullet point, downtown city centers such as Warren, Youngstown, there's a need for increased bandwidth, increased capacity to bring in economic development, specifically job creation, private investment. Those things are going to drive us forward, especially post COVID-19. The third one that has been brought to light and made significant throughout this pandemic is the affordability. We've received numerous calls from people saying, how can we work with the telecoms to provide some kind of a benefit, some kind of a discounted rate to low-income families, those that can't afford the typical 40, 50, 60 bucks a month for high-speed internet. And so that's going to be something we also tackle throughout this process. And lastly, as I touched on a little bit, nobody expected COVID-19 to hit, and nobody expected the effects of this pandemic. I mean, we've been, working remotely since the middle of March, and there's a lot of people who couldn't sufficiently get their work done at home. There's people that, students that couldn't get their schoolwork done, and then you have telemedicine as well. How are people going to access all of these things that they need should another pandemic crisis occur? So, hopefully this study can help us to find ways to be better prepared to attack that in the future. And that's what we're doing this for. Next slide. So about 10 bullet points in the project scope. And again, for further detail on these, I would direct you to Eastgate's website. And on the news section on the front page, the RFP is right there, and it'll provide a detailed breakdown of these bullet points. But for the sake of time, what we're looking for is a technology and trends review, a policy analysis, a service and infrastructure analysis, which is important because throughout the three counties, there's different telecoms scattered throughout different infrastructure that's available in terms of what they like to call last mile coverage and how they go about doing that. We want to have a site analysis. We want a market analysis. We want to do a technology and trends review. We want a utility formation study. There's potential throughout the region to have a public entity, whether it's a county, city, or a nonprofit that would create their own broadband network. We've seen examples of successful formation in Fairlawn, in Hudson. It's too much to the chagrin of the telecoms. They don't like to see the government kind of take things into their own hands, but that's always a possibility. That's something we want to consider if it's feasible. Programming and finance evaluation. How how can we approach these implementation projects that are suggested by a consultant? Where are we going to go for that funding? How are we going to finance it? So these are all things that are very important. Again, project identification. What does the consultant think, is the best path forward? And then finally, obviously, final report. We're hoping that this project will be completed. We're hoping to award the project in November, and we want it to be done by the end of the spring, early summer by the latest. It's an aggressive timeline, especially when you're dealing with a consultant, but we've been going at this long enough, and we're hoping that we can get something done, by the early summer. Next slide, please. Again, just I touched on some of this, but project deliverables, we want an implementation plan. We need to have priority projects. We need to know where the hardest hit areas are. Where is it the most difficult to access internet? Is it the rural areas? Is it the need for digital equity and inclusion, lower cost of internet? We want to investigate and recommend those funding sources. That's going to be big. And then again, the detailed analysis of everything they've found. I'm no broadband expert. We've struggled to find someone that can put this into layman terms that isn't a telecom provider themselves. In the public sector, there are people out there, but we're hoping this study can provide some more detail for us, and then provide us a pathway towards applying to other sources outside of the EDA for funding of broadband related projects. Next slide. And then lastly here, the project timeline. We posted the RFP, the request for proposals, on September 21st. We're going to keep that up on our website. It's on a handful of other websites until the 19th. And then again, aggressively, we'd like to turn around with the scoring committee that's going to be comprised of people from Ashtabula, Mahoning, and Trumbull County. We'd like to complete that review by October 30th, turn around the very next week, and award that contract on November 6th. And then again, target for completion of the study, spring of 2021, potentially early summer if we run into a few hiccups. But, we don't anticipate that this feasibility study should take longer than that time. I mean, it's not so detailed that it should be like a year-long thing. The contract from the EDA says we got to spend these funds within a year, but we'd like to see this done within a 6 to 7 month time span. Next slide, please. And then again, as I referenced before, for a complete breakdown of the deliverables and the scope, our RFP is right there on the homepage. If you scroll into the news, it's the first link. You click on the RFP and you'll see a detailed analysis of exactly what we're looking for each deliverable and scope of work item. Next slide, please. And then that's it. There's my contact information, my email, my telephone number. If you guys have any questions, any concerns, anything you want to talk about, feel free to reach out to me. And then at this time as well, if anybody has any comments, I'd be happy to address those.
Yeah, so we had one come into the chat box asking what the plans are for community input.
Yeah, so right now, as we wait for those proposals to come in, we're going to be forming a task force and also a scoring committee to review the proposals. What we're going to do is we're going to try to go through, again, we'll go through the CAB, but we're definitely going to be recruiting people from around the community to provide their input, what their concerns are. And especially we want to target people that have the rural concerns where they got no access, the ones in urban centers, the businesses, the entrepreneurs that need to have higher capacity. And then as well, we definitely have to tackle the digital equity and inclusion where we got to make this more affordable. We got to find pathways towards making sure everybody has access to the internet. So.
Hey, Pete, may I ask a question?
Oh, yes, sir. Who's this?
Okay. A few years ago, Pat Kerrigan of the Oak Hill Collaborative and the Mahoning County IT director, I think his name is Jake Williams, they were working on something for the inner city of Youngstown, and I don't know what became of that. Have you spoken to them?
Yes, so they formulated a community action technology plan. It's actually on Eastgate's website in the library under economic development. And I've reached out to Pat. I've talked to him several times. We're working very closely with Pat. Pat's going to be a member of our scoring committee, so he's going to have significant input on rating these proposals when they come in. But no, Pat's been a tremendous resource, and we intend to take full advantage of the work that him and his group at Oak Hill have previously done.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Might speak to the importance of what you've been working on here. Is I have a friend who's actually a teacher. She had the problem that her internet went out, and they had told that it would be days before they can come out. And for a teacher right now, she's got no idea what she's supposed to do for several days because she's got that. She's got a preschooler that's doing online preschool, but she's trying to figure it out. It's important all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, it honestly, once we started working on this, I remember, having a conversation with Jim actually at our Christmas party. And he said, once we come back, I need you to be ready to tackle the broadband divide we have in this region. I said, sure thing. And we got started. And we were very lucky that Trumbull County, because they already had received an ARC grant to do a broadband feasibility study in their county. And they came to us and they said, well, we want to put these funds together and do a regional study. So we're able to throw in Ashtabula and Mahoning. But no, Grant, you're 100% right. There's so many people that, particularly in Ashtabula, I have to point them out as an example. We hear from their commissioner every week that, even himself sometimes, and he's a commissioner of a county, he's got to leave his house to go somewhere else to be able to connect to the internet. So whether the telecoms, want to say that there's access everywhere, there isn't. And there's got to be a better way to map this out. And find a way to provide incentives or, through this feasibility study, hopefully we find a way to apply for funding that we can, construct a network where everybody has access.
Excellent. Does anybody else have any follow-up questions for Mark? All right, not hearing anything right now. If you think of something in a couple minutes, feel free to throw it in the chat and we can circle back to him. But
Justin, again, if anybody has any questions, just, feel free to shoot me an email or phone call and I'll be happy to address those. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mark. So yeah, we'll keep going and turn it over to Grant to give us an update on the safety program.
All right. Hello, everyone. Two different things I want to talk about with safety stuff tonight. The first thing is the Local Road Safety Assistance Program. So back in the beginning of the year, ODOT started this new program called the Local Road Safety Assistance Program, where they are taking applications that are purely to do safety studies, and they are fully covering the cost of these studies. So the first one they did early on here, these applications as well. I'm trying to see about doing more of the studies. So this is a great program for us to at least try applying for. Next slide. So as of right now, in February, we applied for the intersection at North Road and East Market. And in May, we applied for the second round that they did. We applied for Glenwood Avenue through Port. Didn't hear much because everything with COVID slowed everything down. But we did receive a notice in July that they had chosen to take these two studies and actually complete them. And then in August, we actually met with consultants for a scoping meeting. And they are planning on having the safety plans completed for us by spring of 21. Next slide. So the two locations we're having looked at, first one is North Road East Market up in Warren. Had 105 accidents from 2016 to 2018. 3 of those accidents were severe. There was a fatal accident there. Both of those roads have a lot of traffic on them. On our high priority list, it is the #1 intersection in Trumbull County. Looking through the crashes, we found there were lots of rear ends. There's a lot of angle crashes. Police cited failure to yield and following too close as the leading causes. So when we applied, we suggested, like, hey, there's could be like access management issues or off of the interchange there, possibly to get looked at. Then they also actually decide they're going to look at some of the interchange stuff there as well and see if that ties in and leads to anything going on there. Next one. So the other location is Glenwood Avenue in Portland. We are looking at a road diet. It's been brought up by some different groups throughout time. It's something might need to be looked at. It's a good safety option. Although I'm always a big fan of those, is the fact that they just usually reduce any risks out of it. So we're looking at is from Overhill Road down to Western Reserve Road. Overhill is where currently it is 3 lanes right now. And then south of Western Reserve Road, when it's Boardman, it actually drops down to 2 lanes. That's why we want to look at seeing if it can be lined up so it lines up better with north and south. One, the fact that the road's really narrow. Each of those lanes was 4 lanes narrow, so hopefully they can look to see if it would be safer to have 3 lanes, which are a little bit wider lanes, possibly tie in some sort of bike or pedestrian infrastructure as well. Next. So both studies are being completed right now by consultants that actually are consultants who help us work on developing our safety plan. They are going to have suggested safety county measures come out of it when they complete them. And every year there are 2 major applications for safety projects through ODOT. One of those is in April of 21. As they develop the study, they are going to use the study to go ahead and complete an application, at which point each of the different relative communities will have a fully completed application to submit if they choose to, right in time to get that application in. So that's it for safety studies that are being done. The other thing I want to talk about is we did put forward today is the General Policy Board resolution. It's adopting statewide targets for the 2020 safety performance measures. Next page. Each year we have to go through and they set new numbers, they update everything, and then they ask all the MPOs to sign off on there as well. They measure 5 different safety measures: your serious injuries, your fatal injuries, serious injury rate, fatal injury rate, and non-motorized fatalities, serious injuries. We're trying to really ought to be pushing for tying out a lot of the pedestrian and bike issues. Go ahead and head to the next one. ODOT is setting a goal of a 2% annual reduction in all of these categories. Previously, ODOT has been doing a 1% reduction, and last year they actually upped it to 2%. So we want everybody to start working towards it much higher. So they're proposing again to continue at 2%. This shows the different target numbers that they are setting throughout the entire state. One thing with these safety goals is the goals are statewide. So they look for 2% reduction. They're not expecting Eastgate to have a 2% reduction or Morton to have a 2% reduction, especially when some of these communities get such small numbers that 2% is a fraction of the crash. But the idea is that all the communities are working together towards the goal of hitting this 2% reduction across the entire state. This shows just where the baseline, which is the rolling average for the past 5 years across the state, and then with the 2% reduction, where we're hoping that it will move to now. Next one. So with that, our proposal is we are going to be continuing to support ODOT's decision with the 2%. And that is what we submitted for as a resolution. It's just a resolution to continue that support. Any questions on your topic?
I have a question.
Yes.
In regards to Glenwood Avenue, you know, Glenwood Avenue goes from Mahoning Avenue all the way out there through Boardman. Which area are you focusing on in this study?
So the area is the southern end of the study is Western Reserve Road. That's southern end of Boardman. Right there, actually, it drops to 2 lanes once it crosses outside of Boardman Township. The north is going to be at Overhill Road, and my mind is blanking right this second on the other name. It's a spot where a couple roads all come together. Once you go north of that spot, it's actually just 3 lanes right now with the lane in each direction in the center turning lane. We're hoping that'll be continued down through there. So it's almost to the north end of Portland. That's where north end of the gas.
Okay, thank you.
And if you want more detailed information, feel free to send me an email. I can get you a map with everything so you can look at.
I was going to make the observation that sounds like a very good project on Glenwood Avenue, all the way from Overhill Road down to Western Reserve. Right now, you've got 4 lanes of traffic that aren't really very wide, and I think the street is too narrow to be 4 lanes. But anyway, you're going to skinny it down, and you're going to give it a road diet, as I read in the advanced materials. I think that's great, and it would be fantastic if you could have bike lanes over that entire run from Overhill Road down to Western Reserve Road. The trickiest part of that project, I think, is going to be that intersection between Glenwood and West Boulevard.
Yes, and that's a very complicated intersection, especially going through that area. But I guess at this point for us, most that we have is we're going to wait and see what the consultants suggest to that area. I am hoping that they will look into doing like the bike lanes. Hopefully they'll come back at a later meeting, go here's some of the stuff that we're working through, and then we'll be able to communicate with like Mahoning County and figure out, like what's the best options. I'd love to see bike lanes going through there. I think those lanes are terrifyingly close. I live in Boardman, and I will not drive in the outside lanes because they feel way too close to that curb for me. So hopefully it'll be, that's where I'm hoping to go forward, and I'm sort of happy that it'll be the consultants trying to figure out what to do there at the different intersections.
All right, does anybody have any additional questions for Grant? All right, well, thank you, Grant. We'll keep moving on with the agenda here. So next up is just a reminder that the next General Policy Board meeting is quickly approaching. It'll be the last Monday of this month, on the 26th. That occurs at 10 a.m. I will reach out to the CAB General Policy Board representatives to get in touch with them to see if how we want to do the Citizens Advisory Board report at that meeting. And if anybody either wants to attend or thinks that there is information that you want to make sure we convey during the CAB report, please feel free to reach out to me. If you want to attend, I'll get you the connection information so you're able to watch and hear what goes on. And then if you have information that you think this, that pertains to this board that we've discussed at meetings, feel free to send me that information as well, and I'll make sure that that gets into the report that we present to the General Policy Board. Does anybody have any thoughts about General Policy Board at this time? No pressure.
Well, I'd like to attend, but I always feel insecure about doing presentation.
Yeah, not a problem. We also have some alternates too, so I'll also reach out to RP and Gerald and Jim, who I believe none of whom are on this call, but I will make sure that I touch base with them to see, if any of them would like to present. If not, I'm more than happy to be able to provide that information to the General Policy Board as well. All right, so we'll move ahead and we'll go over some resolutions. The same way that we've been handling this the last couple of meetings is that after this meeting, I will send out an email to the people on the CAB with the resolutions included and just asking for an approve or not approve for each of these resolutions. And that's kind of how we've been handling kind of the roll call vote in this virtual setup that we've got going here. But Grant went over this resolution during his presentation. It's a resolution of the Eastgate Regional Council of Governments approving adoption of the 2020 established statewide targets for safety performance management measures. And in the updated agenda that I sent out to everyone, the full resolutions are included as those subsequent pages. So the full text of these is included. So if there are any thoughts or any comments about any of these resolutions, you know, you have something now, feel free to bring it up. If not, I'll allow for that time as I'm asking the board to approve these resolutions through email afterwards. So Resolution 29 is a resolution recommendation to the State of Ohio Governor's Office of Appalachia and Ohio Development Services Agency to support funding for the Eastgate Regional Council of Governments Local Development District full application priority of projects in fiscal year 2021 for the Appalachian Regional Commission. This is a program run by Kathy Zook, and these projects were presented previously. In the resolution, you could see that there are 9 projects being recommended for funding. I believe the total amount is around $1.3 million. Again, there's additional information in the agenda where there's a brief project description for each of those. And this resolution is just asking for approval for that process to continue. And then lastly, Resolution 31. Resolution approving the fiscal year 2020 Unified Planning Work Program Progress Report of the Eastgate Regional Council of Governments. This is a progress report that we put together as a part of our work program and our reporting requirements that we send to ODOT every year, essentially summarizing all of the work that we've completed for the prior fiscal year. And then as we continue to move through the agenda, to the announcement section, I have in there a note about board membership and positions of chair and our general policy board representatives. So as we're reaching the end of the calendar year, it is time to kind of re-up our membership and think about how we want the board to look for next year. So I've sent out, I believe in the announcement email for this meeting, a link to the membership application. It's also on the CAB webpage on Eastgate's website. There's a little button there that says membership application. Anybody interested in being a member for the 2021 calendar year should fill that out. If you were a member for the 2020 calendar year, it should be pretty easy. It doesn't ask you some of the extra questions if you select yes. So if you're looking to continue your membership, it's pretty simple. Just a couple easy questions there. How we'll handle that is we will kind of open that up now and ask for people to submit their applications. I looked earlier today and we've gotten 2 in so far, which is great. So some people interested in continuing, and I believe one of those submissions was a new member application. And then at the December CAB meeting, we will take a look at everyone that's applied, and the current board can vote to kind of accept that new slate of membership for 2021. There is one new question on the membership application this year that I didn't have on there last year, and it's just a simple, are you interested in holding a position like chair or policy board representative? That's to give us an idea of you know, who would like to entertain the thought of holding those positions. So we'll take a look again in the December meeting who, you know, is interested in those positions, and we can make our selection on who we would like to have as our leadership for the next year. Does anybody have any thoughts about membership or any of that at this point? Any questions or thoughts or comments?
Just that I submitted it, you know, before the meeting, so I don't know if I was on your list of 2 people, but
I must have looked before you got it in, so.
okay, good.
Thank you for doing that.
And how many members do we currently have on the board?
That's a great question. Let me pull that up very quickly. I should know that. So we have 14 members currently this year.
Okay.
And in the bylaws, there's no set number for how large or small the board can be. We've kind of treated it as a free-flowing kind of membership. I do like the idea of kind of having some type of secure membership in December, and then maybe we could keep it open for people that kind of trickle in, you know, in the first couple months of the new year. And at least that's kind of how we've roughly handled it, at least this past year and the year before.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, just a reminder to everyone, if you are interested in membership, please find that link. I'll be sending it out. I'll make sure I'll include it on future emails as well, so it's easy to access. And that's really the bulk of the content that I had for this meeting. So if anybody has any questions, comments, general things that they'd like to bring up, you know, now's a great time for that. If you've got some thoughts on some topics you'd like to hear about at future meetings, you know, if you have anything to share, we'll call this like an open forum here.
How old is Grant's little one?
She is a little bit over a year old. This is her second CAB, actually.
Oh, good. She's our new member.
Yep. She's been sitting here eating next to me this entire time.
Uh-huh. I enjoy hearing her little voice.
Yeah, she likes to talk. And she also likes seeing her buddy Justin.
All right. Well, if no one has anything else, I think that will be a wrap for this meeting. Just a reminder that our next meeting will be November 5th, the first Thursday of that month. We also have a policy board coming up, so I know Genevieve, you had mentioned you wanted to sit in on that, so I'll make sure to get you the connection information. Anybody else that's interested in that, feel free to reach out to me. And until next time, enjoy your October, and thank you for attending.
Okay, thank you, Justin. I'll look for your email.
Excellent.
Okay.
Have a good evening.
Goodbye.